Hey guys, Peter Franson here from christiangeekcentral.com and Spiritblade Productions, talking now about my reactions to the Bethesda games showcase. It started out with, well, after a little bit of fanfare, Todd Howard coming out, who's been the overseer of the Elder Scrolls and Fallout series for a number of years now. And he came out and really acknowledged that there was some well-deserved criticism that they got regarding Fallout 76, and he actually had to pause and endure a bit of strong agreement in the form of clapping and also some laughter from the audience on that point. It felt a bit unsympathetic on the part of the audience. Now, it was also clear that there were plenty of Fallout 76 fans present who cheered when Fallout 76 was mentioned, so it's not exactly a hostile audience either, but still probably a tough moment for him, I have to imagine. I actually would kind of label it as a broken moment, I think, from both sides. I do kind of wish that Howard would have gone a little off script and maybe taken his gesture of humility one step further in response to what might have been an unexpected reaction from the crowd. And I also wish the crowd wouldn't have laughed or been so eager to express agreement with his self-criticism during his attempt at being open and humble with them. It is a brief moment. If you go back and watch it, you might think I'm making more out of it than is actually there, but it was something that definitely caught my attention as being a little bit different from other times that I've seen creators acknowledge missteps in front of an audience of fans. So anyway, they talked more about Fallout 76 after that and did give some promising news. I mean, basically he pivoted away from that, saying that, despite that, you guys stuck with the game, the developers stuck with the game, kept working on it, and now here's what we have. And one of the things that they shared that was probably the biggest announcement for me was the Wastelanders update. It's a free update coming to Fallout 76 this fall, and it's going to feature NPCs. I mean, up to this point in the game, the only other humans that you interact with are other players. There's been no NPCs to interact with or have dialogue with. Now there are going to be NPCs with full dialogue trees. I'm talking like 3, 4, I might have seen as many as 5 options. I can't remember. So like, even more dialogue options than you had with Fallout 4, which I really much prefer dialogue trees than having fewer dialogue options and a voiced protagonist that I'm playing, and an entirely new main quest to play through in the Wastelanders update. So that's pretty promising to me. For me, I'm not into playing games with other people, and so I still want them to create private servers, which we did not get an announcement about. Pete Hines had gone on record a while back saying that November 2019 would be the soonest that we should expect mods and private servers, which it sounded like were going to be kind of arriving at the same time. But this does give me enough hope to at least be curious and keep Fallout 76 on my radar as they are updating it and maybe getting it closer to ultimately an experience that will be kind of like a single-player Fallout once I'm able to play just on my own private server. There is a free trial going on for anyone that wants to try out Fallout 76, which I probably won't have time for this week and won't really have an interest for without having a private server to play on by myself. But if you want, you can download the game and try it for free from June 10th through June 17th, 2019. And that also features the launch of Nuclear Winter, a Battle Royale mode. So, woohoo! For people who like Battle Royale and Fallout. Next, they talked about Ghostwire Tokyo, which is, I don't know, I didn't give much information about it for me to know if it's my kind of game or not. They talked about Elder Scrolls Online. They talked about a mobile game called Commander Keen, Elder Scrolls Legends. There were some Rage 2 updates and an expansion tease, Wolfenstein VR. So basically, there was this run of a number of games that are really not kind of like what I would think of as core gamer games. Well, Ghostwire Tokyo maybe, but I think it's too early to know anything about it. Elder Scrolls Online, that's for, there's certainly core gamers that are online gamers that like to play, MMOs and stuff like that. Commander Keen, that's more of a mobile type thing. Elder Scrolls Legends, also kind of like tablet-y mobile type stuff. Rage 2, it's an update for an already released game. And then Wolfenstein VR, again, kind of a niche crowd. So I didn't feel like they really hit their stride with me anyway, again, until they mentioned Wolfenstein Youngblood, which is coming out July July 26th. And it's unclear to me at this point if this is kind of like if this is Wolfenstein 3, or if it's a like a standalone expansion or smaller game like Wolfenstein. What was it called? Not the new Order, the new Colossus. There was there was one, I can't remember the name of it now, but it was a standalone expansion, basically, that is not part of the main, new trilogy. So, but this one, the developer that came on stage described it as being a gameplay experience that is bigger than any previous Wolfenstein game. And I was like, well, what do you mean by bigger? I thought this was just like a standalone DLC or something. But he goes on to say you will have more weapons and weapon upgrades than ever before, more ways to customize your play style. And I thought, okay, well, I guess if it's bigger in that sense, that doesn't necessarily mean a more lengthy, expansive actual gameplay experience. But then he says, kind of as a joke, I guess, he says, and of course, even more evil Nazis to kill, which got a laugh from the crowd. And I thought, well, if that's not just a joke, and he really means that the enemy count in this game is higher than any previous Wolfenstein game, then that does suggest to me that there may be more levels, more square footage in the digital world, of this game than previous Wolfenstein games, which would be really surprising to me and makes me think, is this Wolfenstein 3, but they're just not calling it 3, it's being called Youngblood instead? So either way, I'm excited about the possibility that this is like a full-blown, full-featured, full-length Wolfenstein game, because I've really enjoyed the rebooted series. They're adding co-op to this game as an option. You can still play it single player, which I'm really thankful for. And the game is about the twin daughters of B.J. Blazkowicz, who's the protagonist of Wolfenstein and Wolfenstein the new Colossus. And it takes place in the 1980s, 2 decades after New Colossus, and it's about the daughters of BJ looking for their dad, who is missing behind enemy lines in Nazi-occupied France. I'm interested in what these daughters are going to be like. I think I'll really miss playing as BJ, because he was a very interesting character to me. He was very haunted by war, and he was very just kind of tired, world weary in the biggest way you can possibly be, I suppose. And there's a brief shot in the footage that we saw here, and I've seen this actually in previous trailers, I think, that shows what looks like the sisters laughing at each other while they have blood splattered on their faces, seemingly kind of uncaring about the violence that they were evidently just involved in. I liked BJ because he was tired of war and tired of killing. Yes, he was an expert soldier, but he hated war. And these girls, almost, in the brief impressions I've got, seem to revel in it. Now, maybe that's a misguided attempt on the part of the developers to make them quote-unquote strong female characters, but I hope that I'm mistaken in what I'm seeing here and the impression I'm getting, and that they are more psychologically realistic characters and sympathetic characters in the full context of the game, as that's something that I really valued about BJ in the previous 2 games. I also really appreciated the philosophical explorations that the last 2 Wolfenstein games engaged in, with issues about like God and why would God allow these horrible things to happen, and a theistic versus an atheistic perspective being kind of like tested against each other in some dialogue, so there was just some great stuff going on in the Wolfenstein games, and I'm afraid that we're going to be just totally lacking that based on my impressions of Wolfenstein Youngblood. But I hope I'm mistaken. I really wish we would have gotten more. I wish for a game that's about to release and that they haven't showed very much of, and that admittedly doesn't have near as big an audience as Doom. I would think it would be good for them to take the opportunity, since they're creating a co-op game, presumably to try and get more people involved in the franchise, to spend more time showing us this game, show us what's so cool about all those new customizations that we can make to our weapons and our playstyle. Get into the nitty-gritty of mechanics. It almost makes me wonder, do they know that this thing is not really ready to go when it's going to launch, and they're just going to like send it out to die, I don't know. I've got some doubts and concerns, but we'll see maybe if some gameplay footage and some deeper dives shows up sometime later this week in the E3 coverage. Next up was Deathloop, which doesn't really look like my kind of game. It's an Arcane Studios game. Then there was a section of testimonials that I did find very interesting. Basically, they recorded people talking about what their experiences with Bethesda games meant to them. And we got a number of quotes. I'm not going to read all of them, but I want to share definitely a good chunk of them. One person said, "It's a wonderful way to get away from all the pressures in life." Another said, "I think the sense of community has really helped me as a person because I'm typically very isolated." Another person said it was they're very confidence-building experiences. Another said it's brought me out of my shell and stopped me from being an introvert. Another said I probably made more friends online than I have in real life. Another person said the games that you bring out just helps people, honestly. Another one said playing these games just kind of put me out of the worry and stress. Another person said, I was in a dark place for a while and I told myself I wasn't going to be there anymore, so now the only dark places I'm allowed to go are in dungeons in Elder Scrolls Online. And finally, one person said, just being someone who is LGBT, it's nice to be able to sit down and play these games and feel accepted for who I am. So in all of these quotes, these testimonials, I'm hearing examples of people who are under pressure, who are isolated, who have little confidence, who have trouble making friends, who have been through intense suffering, and who feel unaccepted by others. And it's just a reminder to me, and I hope a reminder to you too, to look around at the people that we have the opportunity to walk past in our daily lives, you know, whether they're gamers or not. But I mean, I think particularly we can keep an eye out for gamers as geeks, you know, and be the one who is going to say hi, who is going to burn some of that social fuel and put ourselves out there to make another person that's maybe a little more quiet, a little more reserved, a little less likely to say hi and put themselves out there. You know, I want to see myself be more willing to burn that social fuel tank and put myself out there and see what God might want to do, what might result from me just looking up and smiling and looking for people that I can say hi to, you know, on a Sunday morning. There are people that want acceptance and friendship and peace and affirmation and help, and we should be the vehicle for that, especially as we have the opportunity to connect with others at our churches. I mean, of course, it's good to love everyone, but those who come to our churches want to be there. They have made the first move. We all have in going to our churches on Sunday mornings. We want to have good community with people who ultimately value the same things that we do, who value God as the greatest source of all meaning and purpose and truth. And so we have that common ground to start with, that openness on all of our parts to give and receive from each other, you know, so people that we run into at church want to be there. They want loving and supporting friendships, and we should be a part of making our churches places that people want to stay, whether they're visiting the first time or maybe they've been there for a while, but unbeknownst to us are just kind of thinking of slipping through the cracks and just attending somewhere else or not going to church anymore. You know, I hear testimonials like this from these people talking about their Bethesda games and the experiences they have there, and I'm like, man, I want them to have those needs met in a local church. And I think that's something that we can be a part of making happen. Finishing up, they talk about Orion, which was some really interesting kind of tech. It's a streaming tech, basically, that can be used and applied to any game, it sounded like, that makes it more ready and fitting for streaming technology. So whether it's going to be played on Stadia or xCloud or whatever Sony's going to do, there's this software, evidently, they didn't get into the nuts and bolts of it, that people can add to their development process that will save both the players and the publishers money in the long run, and make streaming much more of a doable thing. I mean, like one thing they said is they said stream your game at max settings even when you're away from a data center, which I thought was really interesting. And they give you the opportunity to test this technology out by playing Doom, which is a really fast-paced shooter at reportedly high settings, 60 frames per second. You can sign up at slayersclub.com to test out that Orion technology yourself. Finally, they spent a bunch of time on Doom Eternal. Doom 2016 was not the game for me, just not my style of gameplay at all. And so I followed along, but they didn't say anything about Doom Eternal that made me think this was going to be different and something that I would enjoy somehow. So, and I've already talked enough about the themes of Doom and what I think of them in my previous videos about the 2016 Doom game. So I really don't have anything to say about that game. But let's look at my jaded predictions and unrealistic wishes for the Bethesda showcase event and see which ones came true and which ones didn't. My first jaded prediction was that Doom Eternal will be the main focus, with some multiplayer-focused game taking second place for time given to showcasing a single game. This one absolutely came true. Ghostwire Tokyo is possibly the only single-player game, and I'm not even sure if it's single-player, aside from Elder Scrolls Blades, which also might not be single-player only, and Rage 2. I know Rage 2 is a single-player, but Fallout 76 got second place for time spent talking about a single game. My second jaded prediction, they will spend time talking up Elder Scrolls Online, even trying to sell it as a solo experience, as a maneuver to try and give solo RPG gamers a reason to stay interested in Elder Scrolls, while they slowly chip away at Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6, which will have projected release dates no earlier than 2021 and 2024. No. They did talk up Elder Scrolls Online, but not trying to appeal to solo gamers at all, as far as I could tell. And they did mention briefly Starfield and Elder Scrolls 6, but didn't say anything about a projected release window or anything like that. So, my first wish was that private servers for Fallout 76 would appear and be announced, and we'd get a fleshed out campaign, basically a normal Fallout experience minus real VATS. Well, there's partial fulfillment of that, as I mentioned before, in the new campaign that they added, and, ultimately we'll see what happens with private servers. My next wish was that Doom Eternal will be showcased and have changes made to the gameplay that will appeal to me, despite my ultimate disinterest in the last Doom game. No, absolutely did not happen. My next wish, this has been on my annual E3 wish list since 2015, I'm going to be putting it back on my wish list next year, is to get a release date for something that's like a Skyrim New Vegas, basically a farmed out new Elder Scrolls game in the Skyrim engine to pacify me while I'm waiting for Todd Howard and team to do the next real mainline entry in the series. No, didn't happen. Probably never going to happen, but I'm going to keep wishing for it every stinking year until Elder Scrolls 6 comes out. My last wish was that Wolfenstein Youngblood will get a deep dive that gives me confidence that it will be another great and doable Wolfenstein experience for me. It did not get a deep dive, and it did not give me confidence that it's going to be another great Wolfenstein experience for me. So, this all said was a disappointing experience. Well, I don't want to say disappointing, because I didn't really have my hopes up for it. There just wasn't much for me in this showcase. The campaign elements for Fallout 76 do look promising. I think Youngblood needed to be given a lot more time for me to have really any increased interest or excitement in it. I'm going to at least try to rent it if it gets a physical release. I don't know, maybe I'll risk a purchase if it's digital only. We'll just I'll have to wait and see. But like I said, I didn't have my hopes up for this conference, so onward and upward into the rest of E3. Still to share this week will be my reactions to Devolver Digital, limited run games, the Kinda Funny Games Showcase, PC Gaming Show, Ubisoft, Square Enix, Nintendo, and a potpourri of game trailers and previews as I scour E3 stories for those overlooked gems. So I hope you'll stay tuned for that. Also, be sure to check out Spirit Blade Legacy Edition, our free audio drama that we're making available right now. You can listen to it right as soon as you're done listening to this at youtube.com/christiangeekcentral. Thanks. I've created some new tiers for our Patreon. On top of many of our original perks, I've added Discord live events, spoiler chat videos, and more. You can get all the info at patreon.com/spiritbladeproductions.